Why did one vague SOW cause a 500K scope gap? PM Panda here, 2.5 decades delivering projects, PMP certified since 2003. The mistake I'm about to show you is how budgets really die. You wrote one vague SOW and now 5 missed exclusions just caused a $500,000 scope gap. You thought you clearly defined what the vendor was supposed to build, but halfway through execution, the vendor refuses to finish the integration, claiming it was never written in the contract. This is how careers end. You are forced to pay out of pocket, causing a massive financial overrun that infuriates your sponsor and damages your reputation. The fix is mastering the critical differences between the project scope statement and the statement of work, or SOW, to lock down your procurement baseline. Think of the SOW as the exact shopping list you give the vendor to fulfill the contract. It is a narrative description of products or services to be delivered by the project. It outlines required deliverables to an external contractor. While the SOW is for the vendor, the project scope statement is your internal boundary. It documents the entire scope, including major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints. Most importantly, it includes project exclusions, which explicitly state what is out of scope to manage stakeholder expectations and reduce scope creep. Think of this as the heavy iron fence you build around your internal team so no one sneaks in hidden tasks. If this fence is missing, people will dump their problems on your lawn every single time. When acquiring outside services, you must ensure that your budget is perfectly compatible with the precisely defined SOW. If the internal project scope statement and the external SOW are not completely aligned on deliverables and exclusions, your project boundaries will fail. If your internal boundaries don't match your external contracts, your budget bleeds. I once saw a vague SOW cause a massive legal battle over software exclusions because the team assumed the vendor knew what was common sense. There is no common sense in procurement. At 5 minutes and 30 seconds, I will show you the exact line item that caused this $500,000 disaster. But first, let's look at an international airport terminal expansion example to see the math. You hire a vendor to install automated security checkpoints. The planned value, or PV budget for this phase, is $1 million. You hand the vendor a high-level narrative SOW, but it is vague and misses 5 key exclusions regarding legacy system integration that were in your scope statement. The vendor completes the hardware installation, but halts work, demanding an additional $500,000 to do the integration because it was omitted from the SOW. You have exhausted your $1 million actual cost, or AC budget, but only have $500,000 in earned value, or EV, of working checkpoints. The calculation is CV trans EV. AC 500,000 minus 1 million equals negative 500,000. Your financial baseline is broke because your procurement documentation lacked explicit boundaries and narratives. Here is what most people get wrong after 25 years of watching this. They treat the SOW and project scope statement as identical documents. They are not. The project scope statement is part of your internal scope baseline used for performance measurement, while the SOW is a narrative description used for procurement and contractor agreements. If you treat them the same, you leave gaps big enough to drive a truck through. In my experience, vague narratives destroy fixed-price procurement contracts without exception. Another massive error is forgetting to document what you are not doing. Failing to explicitly state project exclusions almost always leads to scope creep. For your professional certification exams, test takers constantly confuse the project charter with the project scope statement. The charter contains high-level information and authorizes the project, while the scope statement progressively elaborates the detailed deliverables and explicit exclusions. Always look for the word detail when identifying the scope statement during your PMP exam questions, and ignore the high-level charter. To recap, the project scope statement defines the detailed deliverables, assumptions, constraints, and project exclusions. The statement of work is a narrative description used heavily in procurement to define vendor delivery. Explicitly stating what is out of scope is mandatory to prevent unauthorized scope creep that ruins your schedule and cost baselines. I have seen missed exclusions force teams to absorb massive vendor costs simply because the narrative was too weak. Protect your project by documenting the boundaries early and often. Open your project scope statement today and explicitly add 3 items to the project exclusion section to establish immediate boundaries. If this breakdown helped, hit like, so I know to make more. Subscribe if you want practitioner lessons every week from someone who has actually been in the trenches. My name is PM Panda, and I will see you in the next project rescue session. Check your WBS today and make sure your vendor contracts actually match your internal reality before the bank account hits 0.